Hello and welcome to Homer for Sunday, June 15th. Today we will be reading from lines 67 to 77 in Book 11 of the Iliad. It's a great beginning of the actual fighting scene here. There's some really, really beautiful metaphors for what the Trojan and the Achaean armies are doing to each other. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get into it. And as reapers over against each other drive their swathes in a rich man's field of wheat or barley, and the handfuls fall thick and fast, even so the Trojans and Achaeans leapt upon one another and made havoc, nor would either side take thought of ruinous flight. In equal heads had the battle, and they raged like wolves, hoide lukoi hos tuonon. And strife, that is fraught with many groanings, was glad as she looked thereon. For alone of the gods she was with them in their fighting, whereas the gods were not among them, the other gods, but abode in peace in their own halls, where for each one a fair palace was builded among the folds of Olympus. Fantastic. Let's sing it. Hoidosta meteres enantioia leloisin. Og monalaunos inanros makaros katoruran. Puarone kriton tare dragmata tarpe apipte. Hostro escae caio paleloi sintorontes. Deu nu detoroi non toloi ofuboio. Isa sus minne kapalase kan hoi delukoi hos. Tuonon endista recaire polustono sei sorosa. Oie garrateon paretu. Oie garrateon paretu cane marna menoisin. Hoi daloi usvin paresante toi ala hekeiloi. Svoiseni megaroisin kateja toi kiekastoi. Tuomata kaalata tyktoketab tukasua lumpoio. Awesome. So I think there's some particularly beautiful visions here. In the Iliad, when fighting begins, it always addresses first the greater battle, and then after it addresses the greater battle, then it zooms in on a particular stream of deaths by particular warriors' hands, and then it fixes on one particular warrior. And that ends up becoming the aristeia, right, which is the completion of their bestness, in which they get to be the best. So all around this greatness, right, this greatness of people, which is very different than the individual who is best, right? This is an incredibly important function for the armies in a practical manner. The fighting tactics of those who are actually lined up in this, Bronze Age scenario depends on both the people on the edges and, of course, the people who are doing the most violent, vicious killing, who are in the middle, the promakoi. And as opposed to the plethes, the many that fill up the sides, right? And the way that you describe the many, because you cannot detail everybody, is very interesting. We don't know really truly if they were fighting, right? Maybe they were watching, Agamemnon or some other warrior who was doing the aristeia, right, in the middle. Or maybe they were just in general guarding, the general formations, right, so that, to avoid, attacks from the side. It's certainly understood that they were fighting. And the reasoning for that is, of course, lines like this. As reapers over against each other drive their swathes in a rich man's field of wheat or barley, right? So this is a farming word. They drive a furrow of a makaros, of a sweet rich man, so a blessed man, to make a gathering of wheat or barley, right? And then, the gathering, the bushels of it fall thickly, what a interesting farming metaphor for going to war, right? So the Trojans and the Achaeans were going against each other, blah, blah, blah. So when you're farming, you start at one end and you go against the other, right? So basically, if you picture two rectangles of the army side by side, they're basically going up and down the line, and they're like farming the barley or the wheat. And you have this symmetry here, pueron ne kriton troes kai kaioi, right? And it's interesting because they need each other, right? And in fact, they say, isas huspine kapala second, right? So they were equal to each other in the heads, right? Not a very good translation for this line, but basically means they had their heads locked into each other. This is not, I don't think equal heads had the battle. There's probably some note explaining what's exactly going on there. It's tough to translate it, but I think it has something to do with locking horns, right? Which is this thing of you just sometimes if you observe animals that lock horns, sometimes you just gotta lock horns. You know what I mean? It's really important. Just get in there and do it. And of course, Strife is happy because way back in book 8, I'm sure everybody remembers this in the Homer YouTube channel, Zeus forbade all the gods from participating, whereas the other gods were hanging out on Olympus, and they were hekeloi, right? And this word hekeloi is not just at rest or at one's ease, but it's not participatory, right? So they're not hindered, right? They're not disposed to take part in war, and that's why they are happy. But Eris herself is happy for the mini din, right? Raging like wolves, also very great. That's a great image. But I think that the interesting part about the farming is that, when you farm, you get a crop. And I guess the crop here is the bodies of the other side. But what's interesting about that is, first of all, it's a very touching personification, right? Especially, Homer does many, crop metaphors, like the lilting or the poppy, right, that falls as the warrior that falls, right? That's a very beautiful one. But here, it's interesting. The crops are like harvesting each other, right? Which is a sort of binary dichotomous reliance, right? That says a lot about the internal struggle and the enrapturement of these two peoples with one another in order to have a purpose and have a meaning and have a definition, very wrapped up in this idea that they're both harvesting each other in posterity too, as we get to witness the recount of who dies, who survives, and what everybody is doing as they leap upon one another and make havoc. Right? We'll hear more about what exactly happens to who next time. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I look forward to reading more Homer with you tomorrow. Take care and have a great day. Bye.